And we've got some big breaking news coming in here on India Today. Just days after that big Supreme Court verdict, which came as huge vindication for the Aam Aadmi Party government in Delhi amidst its tussle with the Lieutenant Governor over powers to transfer and post officials in the national capital. Days after that Supreme Court verdict, which had directed the Lieutenant Governor of the National Capital Territory to act as per the aid and advice of the elected Delhi government, the centre, that is the Modi government at the centre, has now brought in an ordinance that strengthens the position of the Lieutenant Governor and actively reduces the power of the Kejriwal government in Delhi over the sensitive issue of transfers and postings. Basically, in effect, this blunts the effect of the Supreme Court order, giving powers to the Delhi government over transfer and postings. This ordinance hands that power in many ways back to the Lieutenant Governor. The ordinance is based on observations in the Supreme Court verdict that was given in absence of central law. The National Capital Civil Service Authority is the body that has been created by this particular ordinance, and it has been created with three members: the Chief Minister Arvind Kejriwal, the Chief Secretary, and the Principal Secretary Home. But the Lieutenant Governor's powers to go against, ignore the recommendations of Civil Service Authority have basically also been bestowed on the Lieutenant Governor. So very importantly, the power is back in the hands of the Lieutenant Governor, and this just days after the Supreme Court had pronounced that power needed to rest necessarily with the Delhi government on the issue of transfers and postings of bureaucrats and officials. Joining me live now, Nalini Sharma, our legal editor. We also have with us Poulomi Saha, who's tracking all the political developments on this story. Poulomi, just break down for us very, very simply, what this ordinance precisely means. Is it really as simple as that this hands the power back to the Lieutenant Governor, gives him the power to veto decisions as far as transfers and postings are concerned, the very power that the Supreme Court had given to the Delhi government a few days ago?
Well, effectively, it does mean now that, you mentioned a very specific point over there, Shiv, that the Supreme Court order did mention that the LG, the Lieutenant Governor, had to act on the aid and advice of the Delhi government in terms of transfers and postings of civil services, personnel, bureaucrats, basically babus, basically. But now what the ordinance has done is that it has set up an authority, which will be the National Capital Civil Service Authority. It basically is headed by the Chief Minister of Delhi, but it also has the Home Secretary and the Principal Secretary, two bureaucrats who will basically decide on matters of transfer, on matters of postings, on matters of vigilance. It will be on majority voting basis. The decisions will be taken, and then recommendations will be sent to the Lieutenant Governor. But also, it is now possible for the LG, the ordinance states very clearly, that he could, if he differs with any of the decisions which have been taken by this committee, he can send back the file to the committee itself. So that is also basically a shifting of power balance that you're seeing over here in matters of services as far as this committee is concerned, and vis-a-vis the decision, which was the verdict which was given by the Supreme Court. And then, of course, now this ordinance that the centre, specifically the Ministry of Law and Justice, has brought forth, Shiv.
Nalini, the Supreme Court order a few days ago, which you had reported on, was seen as massive, a huge victory for the Kejriwal government in Delhi, and an embarrassment and a bit of a setback for the government at the centre as well as the Lieutenant Governor. This particular ordinance seems to sort of reverse that, or at least blunt the energy or the powers that were bestowed back by that order. How do you see this? And I don't want you to second guess, of course, but will the Supreme Court also take a view on this?
Well, Shiv, that depends on as to whether or not the ordinance is going to be challenged before the Supreme Court. But at the same time, we need to remember that considering it's an ordinance, it's going to be in effect for 6 months. And we'll have to see as to whether or not the centre goes ahead and extends it for a further time. Because in case that happens, then there is a higher likelihood that it might be challenged before the court, and the Supreme Court might eventually have to take an on it. But even the judgment that had come out a few days back, what we need to understand is that this was a long pending matter before the court, because there was a 2015 notification that was in challenge in this entire case. Keeping that in mind, when the Supreme Court came ahead, and the Constitution Bench of the Supreme Court nonetheless came ahead and declared that the Delhi government should have a right, as a democratically elected government, to decide on the transfers and postings of the civil servants. For this ordinance to come into the picture just a few days, the timing of it is no doubt suspicious, because there is no doubt about the fact that the Supreme Court judgment has triggered the centre to go ahead and pass this ordinance and try to take some control on the Delhi administration back into its own hands. Now, what the ordinance says, it in several points gives out details as to why this ordinance needed to be passed, talking about the dual status of Delhi, how there are several important embassies in the national capital, that there are the citizens of the national capital need to get the benefit of both the governments together, especially when it comes to the administration of Delhi. All of those points have been listed in the ordinance, but as to whether or not it's going to be a challenge before the Supreme Court is something that we know only with time. And as to
Melanie, just stay with me. We've got some reactions coming in. We're going to cut across and listen to them live. Just coming back to you.
2018 में जब सुप्रीम कोर्ट की कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन बेंच ने जजमेंट दिया, तो ठोक के कहा, ताल ठोक के कहा सुप्रीम कोर्ट से, मैं सलाम करूंगा उनको, कि ये सरकार जो चुनी हुई सरकार है, ये इसके अधिकार है। मगर केंद्र के मन में बेईमानी आ गई, फिर एक जो है कानून ले आए। अब फिर ठोक के कहा, ताल ठोक के कहा सुप्रीम कोर्ट के चीफ जस्टिस चंद्रचूड़ साहब ने, ये अधिकार चुनी हुई सरकार के हैं, इन पर नियत खराब मत कीजिए।
इस पर बात करने के लिए सौरभ जी हमारे साथ वीरेंद्र सचदेव जुड़ गए हैं बीजेपी से। वीरेंद्र जी, सुन पा रहे हैं आप?
जी, मैं सुन रहा हूँ।
ये वो कह रहे हैं कि पूरी तरह से बेईमानी की गई है। यहाँ लगातार जिस तरीके से छोटी छोटी चीजों के लिए स्पोर्ट्स स्पिरिट दिखाई देनी चाहिए थी सरकार की तरफ से, वो नजर नहीं आती।
आपको इनको एक चीज समझानी चाहिए कि दिल्ली देश की राजधानी है। दिल्ली में जो भी घटना घटती है उसका भारत के साथ साथ पूरे विश्व पर असर पड़ता है। सुप्रीम कोर्ट के निर्णय में ये भी तो कहा गया था कि अगर और स्पष्टता चाहिए तो केंद्र सरकार कानून ला सकती है। और जिस तरह से पिछले 7-8 दिनों का, मैं तो 7-8 दिन कह रहा हूँ, लेकिन 7-8 साल का देखिए, आप चीफ सेक्रेटरी को घर पे बुला के थप्पड़ मारेंगे, रात के 3 बजे ताले तोड़ के फोटोकॉपी करवाएंगे कागजों की। जो जांच अधिकारी आपके खिलाफ जांच कर रहा है, आपके भ्रष्टाचार को खोल रहा है, चाहे वो शराब घोटाला हो, फीडबैक यूनिट का घोटाला हो, या शीश महल पे जो 45 करोड़ रुपए खर्च किए हैं, आप उन अफसरों को धमकाएंगे, उनको डराएंगे, और उससे हिंदुस्तान की और दिल्ली की छवि बनेगी।